Welcome, Elena Morettini. Peter Temis here, founder and president of the Institute for Innovation in Large Organizations. We are very privileged to have Elena Morettini with us today. She's just stepped kind of sideways from a senior leadership role as a scientist in the energy business at a very high level to run Globant's new sustainable business studio.
I can tell you that 3 years ago, there were so many companies saying no to this. No, we're not going to participate. No, we don't see the value of disclosing numbers in terms of climate finance. And today, there's many companies, actually, I think it's 2,000 companies worldwide that are strongly supporting this initiative of the task force. So to answer more specifically to your question, there is something which is called, with this very difficult acronym, TCFD, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, that is based on 4 main activities that are very well detailed in any of the publications that refer to the TCFD, and that basically guide a company through what do you have to do to be compliant with the new rules of climate finance. It's relatively easy. There is a metrics there. There are KPIs spelled out. There are governance in terms of what you have to do at a level of organization to start doing that. So it really takes you through different steps of metrics, governance, objectives, and pledges in terms of how to become compliant with your climate finance disclosure. At the same time, my suggestion is whoever can do that and can get its CFO basically and all the financial part really engaged and involved, please go ahead and do it. But if you cannot do that because still you need to convince your company or your partners or your colleagues that this is what we have to do something easier. Take your sustainability report. If you do not have one, please do write a very synthetic one. You just need 20 pages to outline and make transparent what you're doing in terms of emissions. And then on top of that, do your finance, do your risk and opportunity financial assessment of what can happen to your business if climate risks become overwhelming. So what happens to your business if a hurricane comes through? So we go back, oil and gas energy industry. What happens if a hurricane basically makes you shut down 1,000 wells in one of your main fields? What happens to that? Your production will be interrupted. So you need to have your financial department doing the math and the finance number of the risk and opportunity of those consequences of an extreme climate event. That's all we have to do. So take your sustainability report and bring it one step further. It's a matter of not wanting your business to become stranded. So you really need to stay updated with this. Otherwise, you're going to be out of business in a very short time because this is becoming more and more rapid, more and more active. So it is really, if you do not want to do it because you believe in it, which I think that the majority of the people today believe in it, but if you only want to do it for the economic aspect, there's plenty of reason to follow that that business strategy of legitimate business. So your business strategy is in the end becoming or being or increasing or augmenting your legitimacy as the business that you run. Human resources has to understand that if the talent is changing because it's changing in order to accommodate the carbon management and technology new needs and the climate finance new needs, then we will have to rapidly create new roles and new ways of working that have to accompany our governance and our compliance aspects, because we always want to be compliant and we always want to be very well governed by. So that is an aspect that brings together everything, the legal aspect of a company and the human resources aspect of a company. And we need to be very ready and fast to pick up how to create or invent this new job description so that we can actually accommodate the majority of what we consider to be our talent and our investment in people.
Right. That's great.
And I think that it's so thrilling to be able to accompany this new technology and finance through creating new roles that it's going to be so attractive for talent that you will possibly decrease your turnaround rates of the most talented people and not the other way around, which is always what you want, and be able to accommodate. I'm sorry, I use the term accommodate so many times, but I think it really fits in well. We need to sort of reshape our equilibrium and to create the sort of legitimate business. Digitalization and sustainability are two of the major trends today. And if we do not want to do the job twice, we better twin them together and find a way in which we can actually promote them at the same time. So let's not go through a digitalization optimization process of a company and then a sustainability optimization process. Let's do that together and use technology and digitalization in order to speed up sustainability and the solution to climate change. So somehow we think that sustainability can be considered as the new digitalizations, and companies should start thinking about doing the two things at the same time if they haven't done digitalization, or of course promoting sustainability if they're already okay with the previous one. This is the lines of actions. So the lines of actions are basically services that we can offer to companies to sort of go on and move on in terms of advancement of their sustainability practices. And then we have lines of research, more RD&D and investigation and sort of still think tanks to develop what we call IT for green business and the digital sobriety initiatives. I will spend a couple of minutes, Peter. If I'm too long, please interrupt me. So the services are carbon numbers. That basically means that we all need to calculate our carbon and water footprints and our energy mass balance anywhere we're working. So for any type of company, organization or association, we need to calculate our carbon footprint and water footprint and be able at some point to offtake it. Roadmap 5120 is a fantasy name, meaning that we are today emitting between 51 and 57 gigatons of CO2 to the atmosphere. We need to take that number down to zero by 2050. So how do we do it? We need to put forward pledges. We need to put forward objectives. So we call it a roadmap. We would like to help organizations to put forward their roadmap in order to become carbon neutral by 2050. And to do that, of course, with steps, with the different actions, with a roadmap that may be as inclusive as you decide to draw it, or as small as you can according to your budget of the moment. But depending on your degree of maturity, just put forward where you want to be in the next 5 years, and then possibly replicate that until 2030 and 2050. Sustainability and climate for sea level are basically two activities of training or awareness, top down, bottom up. Climate for sea level is top down. We would like to basically talk to our C-suite and be able to explain to them what is the technology, science, and economics behind climate change, and how they can engage their stakeholders and shareholders on a knowledgeable discussion on why we need to act on sustainability and on the climate crisis. And sustainability is basically for the entire company to take a sort of training in the form that we decide, hybrid, e-learning, whatever, where you will understand the low carbon economy principles, the climate finance principle, the growth in humanity principles, so that we are all aware of how to transform a business, a current business, into a legitimate business. And then we have the last two services. Climate finance profile is what we've been talking about now. Start drawing your climate numbers in terms of finance. So not adjectives, but numbers. Try to disclose them, show the world of your stakeholders and shareholders, what are you doing in favor of climate action and how much you're spending in that, how much of your budget is devoted to that. And you will attract more clients, more talent, more everything in a sort of virtual type of activity. Virtuous type of cycle in which we disclose, we become more transparent. Stakeholders know what we're investing in, and they're more keen in investing with us and for us. And Climate Champions is just a very friendly, Peter, very user-friendly survey that you can launch in any organization just to identify who are your game changers, who are your doers, who is your team of people that it's willing to get engaged with climate and become your sort of messenger, your doer within that framework of climate and sustainability actions. And the two verticals, as we were saying, more think tanks, more RD&D, IT for green business basically means, especially for one specific product that we're working on now in terms of technology, is creating a carbon digital twin of every process that you have in an industry or in any organization. So an industry, let's take again the energy industry. upstream, midstream, downstream. It's humongous. It's a world. If you can map all your processes and activity and associate to that a carbon budget by creating what we call a carbon digital twin, you have already solved possibly 50% of your problem. You've already calculated that humongous number, and you can understand what the errors are in there, where to focalize, where to center in order to be more efficient and more effective in terms of decreasing your emission budget. Our engineers were really genius in that, and they basically took an older platform and thought that could help mapping out the process and adding the carbon emission dimension to it, and basically just refurbishing a previous tool. We've done something that I think could be quite revolutionary and could be very useful for understanding in a very short time, which is, we said we're in a hurry, so we really need to save time, where we are. And then, of course, there's going to be mistakes. I'm a modeler. I've always said that I can live with 25% of mistakes in how I represent the subservice. I know I'm not going to get better than that, but as long as I can quantify my mistake, I don't care if I'm mistaken. I can quantify that. I can add it on top and say, hey, look, we think it's like 25 kilos of CO2 that we're emitting. Well, maybe we're wrong of a factor of, 0.3. Let's calculate that and let's compensate with that error within it. And we will always be on the safe side of things. If we can compensate for the error, we will always do something better than the initial measurement. So a range and a measurement can very much help that. And the digital sobriety is basically energy efficiency. So go to carbon market. This is going to explode by the time we put a price to CO2. This is going to be the main topic, and industries and organizations need to get familiar, not only with the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, but also with the Task Force on Scaling Voluntary Carbon Market. We need to be able to offset the emissions we're producing. We have very many different mechanisms. Some of them are already obsolete because they pertain to Kyoto, but Paris Accord or agreement replace some of them. And we are expecting the next COP26 to be very, very technological and advanced and put forward different mechanisms in which we can actually compensate and go out to the carbon market. So I think that CO2 is becoming the new commodity, and we're going to see something interesting moving in terms of trading and markets within the end of 2021. This is just the graphics of the beautiful planet that we talked at the beginning, saying what we think the climate for sea levels could be, some sort of type of conversation with our uppermost management so that they become confident of the science, technology, and economics behind climate change. Have a new vision. These are supposed to be a pair of glasses. Have a plan. The plan to the right has 30 points. We can go through all of them. They basically cover the 4 verticals that we said at the beginning: climate technology, carbon management and technology, climate finance, growth in humanity, business legitimacy, so that you can decide where you want to start in terms of organization to make that change. The vision is that we have to be quick. We need to digitize. We need to build resilience. We need to disclose, be transparent on our errors. Today, also a very powerful marketing message is saying, I didn't do it correctly until last year. I'm more than ready as an organization to take this on board and do it the way I'm supposed to do it. And I think that this authenticity message is what actually makes a very genuine leadership come through and be successful. And these are some of the questions that yesterday we decided to spar with our audience. Can we basically bring to zero emissions from the oil and gas industry? I think we can. I think we all think we can. If we're going to Mars, we can definitely store those emissions somewhere else. So let's not fool ourselves. It's a matter of investment and money, but we can do that. We know that the techniques are there. Hydrogen versus lithium, that is a bit of a controversial element against element sort of struggle. Has the market taken too quickly on board one, which is batteries basically in respect to hydrogen? We are there somehow as the whole scientific community to find an answer to that, and maybe eventually to help the market of doing an intelligent thing in respect to mobility. Organizations, that's what we said before. Can we give up power and somehow be more fair? a chief of fairness may be a new role as part of the new sustainable organizations, in which we know that talent is our asset. So we do not care how diverse we are, as long as each one that participates to a project or to a decision making is bringing talent to the table. So let's protect talent, because sometimes the curse of diversity and talent, it's a very high price to be paid by people, because they get isolated, cornered, just because they look as the weird ones of the table. And let's just give them a voice and listen to them and see in the end if we are willing to take on board their ideas, or maybe their ideas are stored for another occasion. But let's be very fair and give a voice to talent the way we should, because we're going to build way better organizations also in terms of return of interest on everything we're doing. Thank you really so much for listening to us and giving this sort of a voice to what sometimes is silent.